Armin sat in his office on the top floor of a tall glass building. From the wide window, he could see the whole city shining below. Cars moved like little toys, and people looked like dots walking quickly to work. To him, this view always gave a feeling of power. He was the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the city, and everyone knew his name. But while many respected him for his success, people also whispered about his attitude. Armin was clever in business, but he was not gentle in words. He often spoke in a way that made others feel small. His managers feared him, his assistants worked in silence, and his drivers rarely made eye contact with him. Armin believed that respect was not something he had to give. For him, only money and results mattered. That morning, Armin leaned back in his leather chair with a confident smile. On the table in front of him were documents and charts. Today was no ordinary day. Today, he had the chance to make the biggest deal of his life. A famous investor from abroad was coming to meet him, and if the deal went well, Armin's company would rise to an international level. He tapped his pen against the file and thought, this is the moment. After today, everyone will know I am not just a local businessman. I will be a global leader. Outside his office, his team rushed here and there, arranging files, cleaning the meeting room, and preparing presentations. Everyone felt the pressure. It was not easy to impress Armin, and it was even harder to impress the investor who was known for strict standards. Inside the office, Armin's assistant, Rafik, entered carefully with a notebook in his hand. "Sir, everything is almost ready for the meeting. The investor's flight has landed. He should be here within an hour," Rafik reported. Armin nodded but did not look up. "Make sure everything is perfect. I don't want even a small mistake. This deal is worth more than anything we have done before." "Yes, sir," Rafik said softly and left. Armin leaned forward, opened one of the files, and checked the figures again. He was proud of himself. Only 10 years ago, he was just a small businessman selling electronic parts in a rented shop. Now, he was sitting in one of the tallest buildings in the city, waiting to sign a deal worth billions. To him, this was proof that he was smarter than others. But deep inside, a small voice whispered a voice he always ignored. That voice reminded him of the people who helped him in the early days, the workers who trusted him, and the friends who once supported him. Over the years, Armin had pushed all of them away, choosing pride over kindness. He told himself he did not need anyone, because money was enough. The clock ticked closer to the meeting time. Armin fixed his tie in the mirror and practiced his confident smile. He wanted to look strong, powerful, and unshakable. In the reception area, the staff whispered to one another. "The investor is said to be a very humble man," one of them said quietly. "He respects honesty more than money." Another staff member replied, "I hope Sir Armin remembers that. Sometimes he is too harsh with people." But no one dared to say this in front of him. Everyone knew that Armin did not like advice. He only liked praise. At exactly 10 a.m., the sound of footsteps filled the hallway. Mr. Lee, the foreign investor, had arrived with his assistant. He was a middle-aged man with calm eyes and a polite smile. Though he was known to be one of the richest men in his country, he dressed in simple clothes and carried himself without arrogance. Armin stepped forward, shook his hand firmly, and said, "Welcome, Mr. Lee. I trust your journey was comfortable." "It was good, thank you," Mr. Lee replied warmly. His voice carried a gentle tone, which surprised some of the staff. They expected someone of his status to be proud, but he seemed very grounded. As they walked toward the meeting room, Armin spoke about numbers, growth, and future plans. His tone was strong, his words polished. He wanted to impress with power and confidence. Yet, in the corner of the reception, something unexpected was about to happen. A young delivery girl had just entered the building with a food order. She wore a simple dress, her hair tied back neatly, and her eyes showed both tiredness and determination. Her name was Miriam. She worked long hours delivering food to support her mother and younger brother. Holding the package in her hands, she looked around, unsure of where to go. One of the guards was busy on the phone, so she quietly followed the hallway, hoping to find the right person to give the order. Unknowingly, Miriam stepped closer to the very room where the billion-dollar meeting was about to begin. And in that simple mistake, the seeds of a life-changing event were planted. The meeting room was shining with bright lights. A long wooden table was neatly arranged with files, laptops, and bottles of water. The staff had worked hard to make sure everything looked perfect for this once-in-a-lifetime meeting. Everyone in the room waited silently as Armin guided Mr. Lee toward the center chair. Mr. Lee's assistant placed a small notepad on the table, while Armin's managers quickly opened their laptops to show the financial reports. The air in the room felt heavy with pressure. Every person knew how important this day was. If the deal was signed, their company would rise higher than ever before. Armin stood proudly near the screen where a presentation was ready. His voice was steady, filled with confidence. Mr. Lee, as you can see, our company has grown by 200% in the last 3 years. We are the leaders in the local market, and with your investment, we can expand globally, Armin explained. Mr. Lee listened calmly, nodding at times. His face remained gentle, but his eyes observed every detail: the way Armin spoke, the way the managers reacted, and the way the staff behaved. As Armin continued, a soft knock came at the door. Everyone turned slightly, confused. The receptionist was supposed to make sure no one disturbed them. The door opened slowly, and Miriam, the delivery girl, stepped inside. She carried a paper bag with food and looked around nervously. For a moment, silence filled the room. Armin's eyebrows rose in surprise. He paused mid-sentence. His team froze, not knowing how to react. Mr. Lee tilted his head slightly, curious about the unexpected visitor. I am sorry, Miriam said softly. I was told to deliver food here. I think this is the wrong room. She gave a small nervous smile, hoping someone would guide her. But her mistake had come at the wrong time. Armin, already under pressure, felt his pride challenged. How could a delivery girl just walk into the most important meeting of his life? He felt his face tighten. Who let you in here? Armin asked sharply, his voice cutting through the silence. Miriam's hands trembled slightly. She lowered her eyes, whispering, I thought this was the right room. I am sorry, sir. The managers exchanged uneasy looks. The staff at the back shifted uncomfortably. They knew Armin's temper, and they feared what would happen next. But Miriam had no idea that this small mistake would soon change not just her life, but also Armin's. Armin waved his hand impatiently. This is not a place for people like you. Go outside. You are disturbing us. Miriam nodded quickly, holding the food bag closer to her chest. She turned to leave, her face red with embarrassment. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, though she tried to hide them. Mr. Lee watched the scene quietly. His kind eyes followed the young girl as she walked toward the door. Something about her simple presence caught his attention. She was not part of the company, not part of the deal, yet her treatment revealed something important. After Miriam left, silence returned for a moment. Armin adjusted his tie and continued speaking as if nothing had happened. He believed that showing strictness was a sign of strength. In his mind, this small interruption was meaningless. What mattered was winning the $5.5 billion deal. Now, as I was saying, Armin continued, our future plans include expansion to 3 new countries. The numbers clearly show how profitable this partnership will be. The presentation went on for several minutes. Armin's team explained strategies, marketing ideas, and growth models. Every word was designed to impress Mr. Lee. But while Armin spoke with pride, Mr. Lee's thoughts often returned to the scene he had just witnessed. He remembered Miriam's humble smile, her quiet apology, and the sharp way she had been dismissed. After the presentation ended, Armin leaned back in his chair with a confident smile. "So, Mr. Lee, what do you think? Are you ready to join hands with us?" The room filled with expectation. The managers waited eagerly, their hearts beating fast. The staff held their breath, praying that everything had gone well. Mr. Lee placed his pen gently on the table. His eyes moved slowly across the room before settling on Armin. He spoke in a calm, measured voice. "Your company numbers are impressive. Your growth is strong. But I must ask you something important," Mr. Lee said. Armin leaned forward, curious. "Of course. Please go ahead." Mr. Lee paused, then asked, "Is this how you usually treat people who come to you? Even those who are only doing their job?" Armin blinked, slightly surprised by the question. He gave a small laugh. "Oh, that was nothing serious. She entered the wrong room. These small mistakes happen. We don't need to think about that." But Mr. Lee's face did not change. His calm eyes remained fixed on Armin. "It may be small to you," Mr. Lee replied softly, "but sometimes small actions reveal big truths about a person's character." The managers looked at each other nervously. The air in the room grew tense again. Armin shifted in his seat, trying to appear confident, but he could feel that the meeting was not going the way he expected. Mr. Lee folded his hands neatly. His voice remained gentle, but there was firmness in his words. "Before I invest billions into a company, I look at more than just numbers. I look at values, respect, and the way leaders treat others. Because if a leader cannot respect the smallest worker, how will he respect his partners?" The room fell silent again. No one dared to move. Armin's smile slowly faded. For the first time in years, he felt something unusual, a crack in his confidence. The atmosphere inside the meeting room grew heavy after Mr. Lee's words. Everyone sat still, waiting for Armin's reply. But before Armin could speak again, outside in the hallway, Miriam walked slowly toward the reception desk. Her hands still held the food bag tightly. She felt embarrassed for interrupting something so important. She whispered to the receptionist, "I am sorry. I think I entered the wrong room." The receptionist, realizing what had happened, quickly apologized to her. "It's okay. Please don't feel bad. The order was for the staff kitchen, not the meeting room. Let me guide you there." Miriam nodded politely. She was used to mistakes happening during her long working hours. But this time it felt different. The way the CEO had spoken to her stayed in her heart. She tried to push the thought away and continued walking, delivering the order quietly before heading back to her motorbike. Inside the meeting room, Armin forced a smile. "Mr. Lee, please don't take that small incident seriously. The girl was only a delivery worker. These things happen." Mr. Lee leaned back slightly, folding his hands on the table. His eyes were calm, yet there was a sharpness hidden within them. "Mr. Armin," he said gently, "when you say only a delivery worker, you forget something important. Without people like her, how would your staff eat? Without workers, how would your company run? Every role has value. Do you agree?" Armin hesitated. He did not expect the conversation to go this way. His managers sat stiffly, afraid to breathe too loudly. "Yes, of course," Armin replied quickly. "Everyone has their role. But at this level, we must focus on bigger things. I cannot let such small mistakes disturb our important work." Mr. Lee's expression did not change. "I see," he said quietly. The silence in the room became longer, more uncomfortable. The managers shifted in their chairs, unsure if the deal was slipping away. Finally, Mr. Lee turned to his assistant and whispered something in his language. The assistant wrote a note and placed it in front of him. Mr. Lee then looked back at Armin. "Let us continue," he said. The presentation moved forward, but the energy in the room was no longer the same. Armin spoke about profits and global plans, but he could sense Mr. Lee's focus was elsewhere. Meanwhile, in the lobby downstairs, Miriam sat on her motorbike. She rested her head on the handle for a moment, taking a deep breath. She reminded herself why she worked so hard. Her mother was ill and needed medicine every month. Her younger brother was still in school, and she wanted him to have a future better than hers. Delivering food was not easy, but it was honest work. She whispered to herself, "Don't cry. Just keep going." Then she started her bike and rode off to her next delivery. Back upstairs, the meeting dragged on. Armin's managers explained more numbers, but the spark of confidence in the room had faded. At one point, Mr. Lee asked a question that caught everyone off guard. "If I may ask," he began, "how do you see your employees? Are they just tools for profit, or are they people you value as family?" The room froze again. Armin smiled faintly, but his answer sounded practiced. "Of course, I value them. I treat them like family. We are all one team working toward success." The managers glanced at one another. They knew the truth was different. Many times, Armin had scolded staff for small errors. But none of them dared to speak. Mr. Lee looked at Armin with a thoughtful gaze. "Words are easy to say," he replied softly. "But true respect is shown in actions, not in speeches." Those words hit Armin harder than he wanted to admit. For the first time, he felt that his pride was being tested. He wanted to defend himself, but deep inside, he remembered the look on Miriam's face when she had left the room. He quickly pushed the thought away. "This is business," he reminded himself silently. "Feelings have no place here." But Mr. Lee's calm eyes told a different story. The meeting ended with polite smiles. Mr. Lee stood, shook Armin's hand, and said, "Thank you for your time. I will review everything carefully before making my decision." Armin forced a confident smile. "I am sure you will find our proposal the best option." As Mr. Lee left the room with his assistant, the managers finally let out the breath they had been holding. Some felt relief, but others worried. Something about Mr. Lee's tone suggested he had already made up his mind. When the room emptied, Armin walked to the window, staring down at the busy streets below. For the first time in many years, he felt uncertain. He tapped his fingers on the glass and whispered to himself, "It was just a small mistake. Why should it matter?" But deep inside, a quiet unease began to grow. He did not realize it yet, but the simple entry of a delivery girl had already changed the direction of his destiny. The sun had moved higher in the sky, and the glass walls of the office reflected its sharp light. Armin sat in his chair, thinking about the meeting. His managers had already left to their desks, whispering softly to one another about what had happened. Some of them were hopeful that the deal might still go through, but others felt uneasy. Armin leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. He told himself that everything was fine. Mr. Lee cannot ignore these numbers. Businessmen always choose profit in the end, he thought. Yet a small corner of his mind kept pulling back to the morning incident: the delivery girl, her quiet apology, and Mr. Lee's unexpected reaction. He shook his head to clear the thought. "It was nothing," he whispered to himself. "Just a small interruption." A little while later, Rafiq, his assistant, entered the office carefully. He held a list of tasks for the day but looked nervous. "Sir," he said softly, "the investor has requested a private lunch with you. He said he wants to speak more about values and leadership." Armin raised an eyebrow. Values? Leadership? What nonsense is this? Business is about numbers, not lectures. But then he straightened his tie and stood up. Fine. Set it up. I will show him I am a strong leader. The lunch was arranged in the executive dining room. A long table was set with elegant dishes, but Mr. Lee had requested simple food instead of anything too fancy. When he arrived, he greeted Armin politely, the same calm smile on his face. They sat down, and for a few minutes they ate quietly. Finally, Mr. Lee placed his spoon aside and looked directly at Armin. "Mr. Armin," he said gently, "in business, I do not only look at profit. I look at people. Numbers can rise and fall, but values decide if success will last." Armin gave a polite smile. "Of course, values are important," he said quickly. "I always guide my company with strong values. Discipline, hard work, and ambition, that is what I teach my employees." Mr. Lee studied his face for a long moment, then spoke slowly. "Discipline and ambition are good. But respect is greater. I did not feel respect in the way you spoke to the young delivery girl earlier today." The word stung. For a second, Armin's pride flared up. He felt his jaw tighten. "She made a mistake," he said firmly. "That meeting was worth billions. I could not let her disturb it. At that moment, she looked careless, and I had to make sure the room stayed professional." Mr. Lee shook his head softly. His voice was calm but steady. "She was not careless. She was only doing her job. Every person deserves to be treated with dignity, no matter if they are delivering food or signing billion-dollar contracts." Armin looked down at his plate, pretending not to care, but inside, his chest grew heavy. No one had ever spoken to him like this before. Everyone usually agreed with him, no matter what he said. The lunch ended with polite words, but the air between them was different now. Mr. Lee left with the same calm expression, while Armin remained sitting in the quiet room, replaying the conversation in his mind. That evening, Armin returned to his office window. The city lights had begun to glow as the sun went down. From above, everything looked perfect, but inside his heart, unease kept growing. He remembered Miriam's eyes, the way she had looked down when he had spoken harshly. He remembered her trembling voice when she said sorry. For the first time in years, those memories did not leave him quickly. They stayed, pressing against his mind. Meanwhile, Miriam had finished her deliveries for the day. She parked her motorbike near her small home, a two-room house at the corner of a busy street. Inside, her younger brother was studying at the table, and her mother rested on the bed. Miriam placed a packet of food on the table and smiled warmly. "Here, I brought something for you both." Her brother's face lit up. "Thank you, Apa," he said with excitement. Her mother smiled weakly, holding her daughter's hand. Miriam did not tell them about what had happened in the office. She did not want to worry them. But inside, her heart was still heavy. She whispered a small prayer for strength, promising herself she would keep working hard no matter what others said. Back in his high-rise office, Armin paced the floor. His pride told him he had done nothing wrong, but another voice inside whispered that maybe he had crossed a line. He remembered Mr. Lee's words, "Small actions reveal big truths about a person's character." He tried to shake it off, telling himself, "I am a CEO. I don't need to think about delivery girls." But the more he tried to forget, the more the memory returned. The night grew late. Armin finally sat at his desk, staring at the silent phone, waiting for a call from Mr. Lee's team. He told himself that tomorrow, the contract would still be his. But deep down, he felt a strange fear he had never known before, the fear that respect, once lost, could not be bought back with money. And far away, in a modest home, Miriam said a quiet prayer for her family, never knowing that her simple mistake of walking into the wrong room had shaken the world of one of the richest men in the city. The next morning, Armin walked into his office earlier than usual. His suit was perfectly pressed, his shoes shining, but his mind was restless. He had not slept well the previous night. Over and over, he heard Mr. Lee's calm words echoing in his ears, "Small actions reveal big truths about a person's character." Armin told himself again that it was nothing. "Business is about numbers," he whispered, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "Mr. Lee will not throw away billions for such a small thing." But despite his confident words, a seed of doubt kept growing inside him. At 9 a.m., Rafiq entered the office carrying a folder. He looked nervous, avoiding Armin's eyes. "Sir," he said softly, "Mr. Lee's assistant called. They are on the way here for a final discussion." Armin straightened in his chair. "Good. Today everything will be sealed. Prepare the papers." Within the hour, Mr. Lee arrived with his assistant. As always, his presence carried calm energy. He smiled politely, greeting everyone, but there was a seriousness in his eyes. The managers quickly gathered in the meeting room, papers and pens ready. Armin shook Mr. Lee's hand with forced cheer. "Welcome again, Mr. Lee. I trust you had a good rest." "Yes, thank you," Mr. Lee replied kindly. He placed his folder on the table and sat down. The managers waited silently as Armin began to speak. "We are ready for your decision. I am confident this partnership will be the most profitable for both of us. Our plans are strong, and the growth is guaranteed." Mr. Lee listened, nodding slightly. When Armin finished, the room fell silent. Everyone leaned forward, waiting for his answer. He placed his hands gently on the table and spoke slowly. "Mr. Armin, I have reviewed everything. Your company is strong, your numbers are good, and the future is promising. But before I sign, I must tell you what is on my mind." Armin's smile froze, but he nodded politely. "Of course. Please share." Mr. Lee's voice remained calm, but each word carried weight. "Yesterday, I saw something that spoke louder than all your presentations. A young delivery girl entered the room by mistake. She apologized, but the way you treated her told me much about your leadership." Armin shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The managers lowered their eyes, pretending to read their notes. Mr. Lee continued, "I have built my career by investing not only in numbers but also in people. I believe that the way a leader treats the smallest worker shows how he will treat his partners, his clients, and his own team." He paused, his gaze steady on Armin. "When I saw the way you dismissed her, I asked myself, if this man cannot respect someone doing honest work, can he respect me when things go wrong? Can I trust him with billions of dollars?" The words landed heavily in the room. The managers' faces turned pale. Rafiq looked down at the table, his hands trembling slightly. Armin tried to speak, his voice tight. "Mr. Lee, with respect, that was a very small incident. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Surely, a single moment cannot decide a deal of this size." Mr. Lee's calm expression never changed. "On the contrary," he said gently, "sometimes a single moment shows us everything we need to know." The silence that followed was sharper than any argument. Finally, Mr. Lee closed his folder and stood. "I appreciate your time, Mr. Armin, but I cannot move forward with this deal. My values do not allow me to invest in a company where respect is missing." Armin's face turned pale. "What? You are canceling, because of that girl? You will lose billions." Mr. Lee shook his head softly. "I will not lose, Mr. Armin. Money can always be earned again. But respect, once lost, is very hard to recover." He turned to his assistant, who packed the papers neatly. Then he gave a final polite bow. "Thank you for your hospitality. I wish you well." And with that, he walked out of the room. For a long moment, no one spoke. The managers sat frozen, unable to believe what had just happened. Rafiq swallowed hard, his eyes fixed on the table. Armin remained standing, his hands still resting on the empty chair where Mr. Lee had sat. His mind refused to accept it. $5.5 billion had just slipped away on the spot. He sat down slowly, staring at the papers that were supposed to bring him glory. Now they looked meaningless. The room that once felt powerful now felt empty. For the first time in many years, Armin felt something stronger than pride. He felt regret. The image of Miriam's humble face returned to him, clearer than ever. Her quiet voice echoed in his ears, "I am sorry." He pressed his hands to his forehead. "What have I done?" he whispered to himself. The managers quietly left the room one by one, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Outside, the city moved as always, cars honking, people rushing, businesses running. But for Armin, the world had stopped. A single harsh word had cost him the biggest deal of his life. And deep inside, he knew it was not just the deal he had lost, it was the respect that no amount of money could ever buy back. The office that once buzzed with energy now felt heavy and silent. After Mr. Lee walked out, the managers avoided looking at Armin. Some slipped away quietly, carrying their files. Others sat still for a moment, waiting for Armin to speak, but no words came. His silence was louder than any order he had ever given. Armin sat in his chair, staring at the empty seat across from him. The memory of Mr. Lee's calm voice repeated in his mind, "Money can always be earned again. But respect, once lost, is very hard to recover." His chest tightened. For years, he believed power and wealth would hide his harsh ways. But now, the truth stood before him. His company had just lost the biggest deal in its history, not because of weak numbers, but because of his own behavior. Rafiq, his loyal assistant, finally gathered the courage to speak. "Sir, maybe this is a lesson." "Maybe," he stopped, afraid to continue. Armin raised his eyes slowly. There was no anger this time, only exhaustion. "Leave me alone, Rafiq," he whispered. His voice was softer than usual, almost broken. When the office emptied, Armin stood and walked toward the glass window. Below, he saw people moving quickly through the streets. Some carried bags of food, some carried briefcases, some carried nothing but hope. For the first time, he noticed how small he felt compared to the endless world outside. Meanwhile, Miriam continued her day without knowing the storm she had unknowingly created. She rode her motorbike from street to street, delivering food with quiet determination. To her, it was just another day of hard work. The incident at the office stayed in her heart, but she chose not to speak about it. She believed her family needed her smile more than her sadness. That evening, she returned home to her little brother, who proudly showed her his schoolwork. "Look, APA. I got the highest marks in class today," he said, his eyes shining with excitement. Miriam smiled and hugged him tightly. "I knew you could do it. You will go far, inshallah. Just keep studying." Her mother, lying on the bed with a gentle smile, whispered, "Miriam, you are carrying so much on your shoulders. But one day, all your hard work will bring blessings. Never feel ashamed of what you do." Miriam nodded, though she kept the memory of that morning hidden deep inside. She did not want to burden her mother with it. Back in his luxurious apartment, Armin sat at his dining table, untouched food in front of him. For the first time in years, the silence of the large room felt unbearable. He remembered his younger days when he dreamed of becoming successful. Back then, he believed he would be respected and loved once he reached the top. But now, sitting alone with his thoughts, he realized success without respect was empty. The next day, news began to spread quietly in the business world. Rumors flew about the cancelled deal. People whispered that Mr. Lee had walked away after questioning Armin's values. Some said it was only temporary, but others knew the truth: Mr. Lee was a man of principle. Once he made a decision, he did not turn back. Armin's managers grew restless. Some began sending their resumes to other companies. They feared the fall of their empire. But Armin did not shout at them this time. He did not blame anyone. He simply sat in his office, lost in thought. He replayed the incident again and again, the delivery girl's nervous apology, his sharp words, the silence in the room, and Mr. Lee's eyes filled with quiet disappointment. He asked himself a question he had never considered before: why was it so hard for me to show kindness? On the other side of the city, Miriam kept moving forward. She continued delivering food, facing traffic, heat, and long hours. But every evening, she returned home to her family, and their smiles gave her strength. She did not know that her small mistake of entering the wrong room had changed the course of a billionaire's life. Days turned into a week. Armin avoided parties, meetings, and social gatherings. He stayed in his office late at night, staring at the city below. His pride was cracked, and he could no longer hide behind it. One evening, as he walked out of the office building, he saw a group of workers leaving together. They laughed, joked, and carried their simple lunches. For the first time, Armin felt a sense of envy. They had something he had lost long ago: genuine connection. He returned home and sat by his window, whispering to himself, maybe wealth is not the only measure of success. Maybe respect and kindness are worth more than billions. For Miriam, life remained the same, filled with small struggles and quiet victories. For Armin, life had changed completely. The man who once believed he owned the world now carried the weight of one truth: that without respect, even the richest man could feel empty. And though their worlds were far apart, both Miriam and Armin carried lessons in their hearts. She carried the lesson of dignity in hard work. He carried the lesson that arrogance can destroy everything. It was only a matter of time before their paths crossed again. The city moved on quickly, but Armin could not. Weeks passed, and his company tried to recover from the lost deal, but the shadow of failure remained. Competitors whispered about his mistake, and some business partners became distant. For the first time in his life, Armin felt what it meant to stand on shaky ground. Every night, he sat by his window, staring at the glowing city lights. He thought about the billions he had lost, but even more than that, he thought about the moment that caused it: the delivery girl's trembling voice, her soft sorry, and the way Mr. Lee's eyes grew cold after witnessing his words. Armin realized something he had never admitted before: his pride had cost him more than money. It had cost him respect, trust, and the chance to rise higher. One morning, he told Rafiq, "Cancel my meetings today. I need to go out." Rafiq was surprised. It was rare for Armin to leave the building without purpose. But he did not question his boss. Armin stepped out into the busy streets, wearing a simple shirt instead of his usual suit. For the first time in years, he walked among the crowd without a driver or bodyguard. He noticed things he had ignored before: vendors calling out, workers rushing with tools, delivery riders balancing heavy bags. Everywhere he looked, he saw people like Miriam: ordinary, hard-working, struggling, but moving forward with dignity. He asked himself quietly, why did I think they were less important? Without them, how would this city even run? By chance, as he walked near a small cafe, he saw a familiar figure parking a motorbike. It was Miriam. She carried a food bag in her hands, her face tired but determined. Armin stopped in his tracks. His heart beat faster. This was the girl who had unknowingly changed his destiny. For a moment, he considered walking away. Pride still whispered in his ear, telling him to ignore her. But another voice, stronger this time, told him, "This is your chance." He stepped forward slowly. "Excuse me," he said softly. Miriam turned, surprised. She recognized him immediately: the powerful CEO who had once spoken harshly to her. Her eyes widened, and she froze, unsure what to do. Armin lowered his head slightly, something he had never done before. "I owe you an apology," he said sincerely. "That day, I spoke to you in a way no one deserves. I let my pride blind me. Because of that, I lost something very big. But more than that, I lost respect for myself, and from others." Miriam stood quietly, holding the bag in her hands. She did not know what to say. She never imagined a man like him would stand before her with such words. "I wanted you to know," Armin continued, his voice heavy with honesty, "that your small mistake taught me the biggest lesson of my life. You reminded me that every person matters. I am truly sorry." For a long moment, silence filled the air. The street noise seemed distant. Finally, Miriam gave a gentle nod. "I forgave you that day," she said softly. "I knew you were under pressure. But I am glad you understand now." Her words were simple, but they lifted a great weight from Armin's heart. For the first time in weeks, he felt a small sense of peace. He smiled faintly. "Thank you," he said. "I don't expect you to remember this moment, but I will. I promise to lead differently from now on." Miriam gave a polite smile and turned back to her motorbike. She had deliveries waiting, a family depending on her. But as she drove away, Armin remained standing there, watching her disappear into the busy streets. He whispered to himself, "She may be a delivery girl, but she was my teacher." From that day, Armin began to change. His managers noticed he spoke with more patience. His staff found him listening more often. Slowly, the fear in the office turned into respect. It was not easy for him. Old habits tried to return, but he reminded himself daily of the lesson Miriam had given him. Months later, when another investor visited, Armin presented not only numbers but also the culture of his company. He showed how his employees were treated, how their voices mattered. And this time, the investor smiled with approval. Armin did not forget the $5.5 billion deal he had lost. That loss became the mark of his greatest mistake, but also the door to his greatest lesson. On the other side of the city, Miriam continued her work. Her life did not suddenly change into riches, but her dignity remained strong. She never knew the full impact of her entry into that meeting room. She only knew she had done her job with honesty. But somewhere in the tallest tower of the city, a powerful CEO remembered her every day as the girl who had shown him the true meaning of respect. And so, two different lives carried the same truth: wealth can be lost and earned again, but respect once broken leaves a lesson that lasts forever.